Hello, Texans. I'm Susana, and this is the Susana Gibb Show. I just want to welcome you all back. This is season 2 of the Susana Gibb Show. It's season 2 because I decided it was going to be, and mostly because, as you may notice, I changed the theme music. Sounds a little bit outlaw, which I don't really know that I'm outlaw, but I'm going to go with it anyway. On this podcast, we're going to talk to all kinds of Texas people about what they're doing and how they're succeeding. And today we have the City Archivist, or the Archivist, depending on where you're from, with the City of Dallas. Actually, no, it's It's the Dallas Municipal Archives. There's a difference. I can't quite remember what it is, but he does explain it. Super nice man. All kinds of good stories. I really tried hard to get him to tell me about the story where he pulled out some lingerie from a World War I person. I couldn't quite get him there because he is a city employee, but he has lots of other fun stuff to say. We also started a new thing called Rando Texas Trivia, which closes out the podcast. And lastly, we're going to leave you with an insurance tip because our insurance agency sponsors this podcast, which should help you send you out into the world a little smarter, more educated, because you really wanted to know about insurance. I'm pretty sure that's why you're here. Connect with us at Gibb Agency Dallas. We love to hear from you, especially what you think about our new music. And now, on with the show. On a podcast with me, thank you so much for being here. We have John Slate. He is the City Archivist of the City of Dallas with the Dallas Municipal Archives. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So what's the difference between if I say you're the archivist for Dallas versus the Municipal Archives?
Well, the truth is that I'm actually not the only archivist in the city of Dallas. So there's a wonderful special collections in the public library directly across the street from us. But the Municipal Archives is 2 floors underneath Dallas City Hall, and that's where I usually am.
So how much space do you have in City Hall?
Not lots. We're part of the city secretary's office, and for a lot of our existence, we've been storing things in all kinds of closets and locked areas and things like that. We've had a sort of a vault going on for some years since the 1980s, but we now actually have a environmentally stable, climate-controlled vault that is, like I said, two floors under City Hall, and we're also connected to the city's records management center. So we're in the middle of kind of a warehouse of sorts.
What kind of stuff do you guys store at the archives?
Wow, anything under the sun connected to Dallas city government. If it had, sometimes it's a little tangential, but most of it is directly related. We collect mostly the records of city departments. There's, dozens and dozens of city departments. And so the way I usually approach talking about archives in the municipal archives is to ask people to think about it in terms of public services like police or fire or water or sanitation or, tax collecting or, housing department, things like that. And that's really how things are organized. The things we have are related to the services and functions that serve the citizens of Dallas.
What's some of the strangest things that you have stored in the archives there?
Let's see. Well, let me give a moment to that. I'll tell you some of the more unusual things we have are in our JFK collection. We have the police department's records of the Kennedy assassination, and they're the records that were compiled by the Dallas Police Department during their initial investigation. And so it's about 2 weeks or 3 weeks worth of mostly of their procedural records, and until the federal government kind of swooped in and said, we'll take it from here. So as far as unusual things, we have the fingerprint files for people like Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby, and those are unusual. Jack Ruby's is rather entertaining because, on a fingerprint file, you usually have 10 fingers on it, but there are only 9 on his. And that's because Jack Ruby had a finger bitten off.
Oh, I did not know that. Not just he had a missing finger, but it was bitten off. Wow.
Yeah. Rough guy.
Is JFK stuff probably like your most requested bits of information? I mean, can anybody walk in and say, hey, I want to see Jack Ruby's fingerprints?
Yeah, it's easily our crown jewel collection, and it's definitely among our most requested materials. And the bad news is that it's pretty dog-eared after 60 years, and a lot of it's on carbon paper because they use multi-part forms, and then a lot of the typescript materials on onion skin paper, if old-timers remember that kind of stuff. But the good news is it's entirely digitized. So there's 11,000 documents that have been lovingly digitized through a grant from the Texas State Library and Archives Commission, and it is hosted 24/7 on the Portal to Texas History, which is the statewide digital library that's maintained by the University of North Texas.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. So I could say, hey, John, I mean, I probably don't even have to talk to you, right? I could just go online and look at the archives and pull stuff up, and that's so interesting. How did you get to be in this position?
Well, I started in archives straight out of high school, and actually before the summer before I started college. So that would have been in the early 1980s. And I worked at a place called the Barker Texas History Center at University of Texas at Austin, which is now called the Briscoe Center for American History. And I spent 13 years there as a paraprofessional and worked with everything under the sun, anything you can think of. And during that time, I got both my bachelor's degree and my master's degree in library and information science with a concentration in archives. And that led to a job at the San Antonio Public Library as the curator of their very unusual circus history collection. And
wow,
that was in the late 1990s.
Circus history.
Mid-90s. And after that job kind of tanked after the collections started to close down, I took a job as on a federal grant project archivist position at a private nonprofit arts education foundation, where I managed and processed collections relating to African American photographers. Kind of unusual.
And then when did you come here? Yeah, you have bounced around, but you've been here a long time, right?
Yeah, and then I was lucky enough to score this job in March 2000, and my anniversary is coming up, and so I've been here for over 20 years, and it's been a wonderful place to work.
Does your scope of work change based on the mayor or any political changes that happen?
Not really.
Like, do you get more money depending on who's in charge, or like, do you answer to the mayor?
No. I answer to the city secretary, and the city secretary is an appointee of the city council, and I've worked now under 1, 2, 3, 4 city secretaries.
Wow. Who was your favorite? I would ask you who was your least favorite, but I don't think you'll tell me, but you might tell me who your favorite was.
of the
Oh,
city
who was
center.
your least favorite? Yeah.
Oh, they're all good in their own special way. Um, I will I will
Oh, very
I will give a shout out
diplomatic answer.
to the city secretary that I did not get to work under, a guy named Bob Sloan, and Bob was the city secretary for the city for many years, and he had the foresight to establish our archives,
Oh,
because
nice.
you realize that, okay, I'm in charge of the city council's meeting minutes, uh, ordinances and resolutions of the city, which are, of course, voluminous. Um, and then he realized the value of starting an archives program. And I'm only the second archivist that's been here.
Interesting. I have this weird image of a librarian, and I'm pretty sure the image is from, this is dumb, the movie Ghostbusters, and she's standing there reading a book and she goes shh, and then at some point she becomes a monster. But I always imagine, being a librarian is very chill, it's very calm, you're kind of reading your books. What is a day in the life like for you?
Well, it's a little different than a library position. Library position is about half and half, in front of the public and behind the public, behind the scenes. And I worked a lot of public reference. Libraries are walk-in kind of places. You walk in, you look for a book. If you need help, you talk to the librarian, or a reference librarian or whoever. And we're kind of like that, but we're not as much of a walk-in kind of place. Um, our our archives is so small that we just can't allow for people to just drop in or walk in. So we're by appointment only, and the good part about that is that keeps it real quiet. Oh, excuse me.
Do you like it that quiet, or do you ever feel like cut off or isolated, or are you somewhat introverted by nature? Is that how it works for you, or?
Um, I'm a pretty social animal, so I like human contact, and I get lots of it through, email, phone call, um, those kinds of things. But uh, I would say, I don't think it could be isolating if you want it to be, but I
Mm.
choose not to. I try to engage with people as much as possible. Um, um, one of the benefits of it being an appointment only gig is that, I get a lot of I get a lot of quiet, and I can get a lot of work done when there aren't a lot of people around. So it's
You know,
double edged.
you mentioned onion paper earlier, and there's something so satisfying for me about touching paper, like touching paper and feeling the books and smelling the new books, the old books. How do you feel about the digitization of books, and are we going to lose books at some point?
I hope not. Um, Here's my feeling on it. I think, myself included, a lot of people have a real fetish for handheld objects, for some tangible objects that are paper. People love things that that they can go through, like the giant bound volumes of the city council minutes. They're these large ledgers, bound ledgers, and those are fun to flip through and look through. You can see the handwritten ones, and then you can see it move into the time period when typewriters were developed and things like that. And of course, now everything's created through word processing on computers. But uh, you know, I worked with rare books for many years, so I truly have a love for handling and fondling an old book, and looking at old paper and photographs and maps and things like that. But I will say, that digitization is one of the greatest things to come along in the information world. And it's because it is a lot more democratic, makes it a lot more available to people. A colleague I worked with for years had a little sign on his desk that said, the citizens would rather be online than in line. And I like that.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good point.
And, I would say just a small percentage of our collections have been digitized, and we're happy to have those on places like the Portal with Texas History and the Texas Archive of the Moving Image, which has some of our film and videotape. But, we'll never digitize everything. And so we're still happy to have people make appointments to come on in and, handle originals.
Gotcha. So I have to think, after working there for a solid 23 years, you have to have some good stories about weirdo requests or people that have come in, or so anything that you could share with us?
Sure. We get all kinds of people want to use our collections. I would say about 70 to 80% of it is city employees and people from other departments. And most of their questions are very practical ones. Who was the mayor pro tem in 1974? Or the park department is in the field doing restoration on a historic park structure. One that comes to mind is over in Oak Cliff at Lake Cliff Park, and they were taking care of a building that was built in the 1930s by one of the alphabet agencies like the WPA or CCC or something. And they were curious about the materials, the roofing materials there were. And someone said, why don't you call Slate in the archives? And well, yeah, we do have the original plans, and it has a building schedule with all the materials listed from, 1935 or 1938 or whatever. And so they were able to identify what the original materials were, try to find a modern analogous type of material, and they managed to make it look like it did when it was first built. So beautiful example.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I love it, and that fulfills my selfish desire to help people. I love seeing that. And then we also have citizens, and citizens are doing everything from writing books. Some people write historical fiction and want to know when the first lights were available in Dallas, first electric lights, or what streets were paved and what streets were not paved in Dallas in certain decades. And those are the kind of questions that we could answer. A lot of people
Can
do.
you name any of the authors that you've worked with, that any that would ring a bell?
Sure. Let me think of. A lot of them are local history authors. I've helped people like, and then also people who are doing research for nonfiction books. And a beautiful example is Darwin Payne, who's a local author and former journalist. He was a very widely respected journalist for many years in Dallas media, former professor at SMU, and on any number of books that he's published, he's consulted the archives. He did a biography of the first African-American municipal judge in Dallas, and we were very happy to find a portrait of him being sworn in. So,
wow,
nice stuff there.
That's so cool. I'll have to look Darwin Payne up.
It'd be a great subject, by the way.
Oh, very cool. Well, thank you. What else? Do you have anything else you want to share with us today?
Let me think. Well, one thing that I will say is that a lot of people think that archives are dusty and boring kind of places, and that they how could they possibly be exciting or interesting? I mean, everybody loves mysteries, and people love the idea of, dust and cobwebs and things like that. But in truth, our shelves are clean. We dust them regularly. And my feeling about archives is that archives aren't there just to be collected and put on a shelf. They're really no good if they aren't helping people or available for use. So I try to follow the twin goals of preservation and access. On one hand, we need to take care of the materials, put them in the right kinds of folders and boxes and put them in an environment that's going to help them survive for future use for, presumably forever. And, but we also want to make them accessible. So we create box inventories and guides that we have online. And we have several hundred, online right now at dallas.gov. You can go to the city secretary's office and look at our inventories. And if you want to come in, give us a holler or an email, and be glad to set up an appointment for you. But following the twin, yeah. But we think that that's a good way to balance taking care of the materials, but at the same time making them as accessible as possible, like Places Through the Portal of Texas History.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a really good point. It's not just to keep and preserve, because you think about, it's not a museum where you look but don't touch, right?
Right.
That's an interesting way to put it, because I do kind of think of it as like, oh, we need to save these. They need to be protected, but protecting them denies access. And so that's a good way to put it. And, your so-called selfish side of helping people, I can see where you want to show people what's in there and stuff. So thank you, John, for being here and telling us about the archives. We're on to Texas trivia. Are you ready to play Rando Texas Trivia?
I'm ready.
All right. So these are 5 questions that I came up with myself, so you'll have to judge for yourself. Number 1, what is the largest library in Texas?
University of Texas at Austin.
Okay. What is the 6th largest library in Texas?
The 6th largest?
The 6th. I told you it was rando.
Wow. 6th largest? Let me guess. Let me think. How about University of Houston libraries?
Okay. What city banned the book No David, which is an award-winning children's book featuring a mischievous cartoon character who at one point jumps out of a bathtub, exposing a cartoon backside?
Maybe Daffy Duck.
Daffy Duck. What does the TripAdvisor consider the top-rated library in Texas?
Top-rated library in Texas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
All right, moving on. Which state had more book challenges than any state last year?
Which state?
Which
Texas.
state? Yeah, that was us. So your first question, what is the largest library in Texas? The New McAllen Public Library apparently is the largest library with 123,000 square feet and may have the largest single-floor public library in the nation.
Wow, that's
which I
great.
thought was pretty interesting. I know. It's not the biggest. The biggest is in Washington, right? It's the Library of Congress. Am I making that up? I'm probably making it up. The 6th largest public library in Texas. Again, thank you for playing. It is the Frisco Public Library.
Frisco?
Yeah.
Wow.
100. Yep.
They have great libraries up there.
Yep, and they have a really nice Blackland Prairie, inspired the architectural and interior design of it. So now I have to go to Frisco.
Yeah.
No David, the city that banned or considered banning this book was Katy, outside of Houston. Apparently it's a drawn cartoon that gets out of the bath, and there's a cartoon backside, and it caused a big questionable to do. And I was like, really? TripAdvisor considers the top-rated library in Texas the George Bush Presidential Library.
Interesting.
I know. Well, it's TripAdvisor, so whether you just never know. Which is the George H.W. Bush, the 41st President of the United States, dedicated to the preservation, research, and exhibit of official records, personal papers, and memorabilia. And then you got the last one right. Which state had the most book challenges in any state? It was Texas.
Yeah.
Texas. So thank you so much for playing Rando Texas Trivia.
Thank you so much. Enjoyed being here.
Well, I appreciate it. Hang out for a minute. I'm going to shut down the podcast, but hang out for a second so I can say goodbye. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I totally, to be honest, picture him in a dark, dusty place. But now I'm going to have to go see him and see where he is. They're actually in the city building, the building that's shaped kind of funky like a V. A lot of people don't like this building. I personally love it and think it's really interesting. And if you haven't seen it, go check it out. And now onto our insurance tip o' the week. We get this question quite a bit. It's, how do I know if I should file a claim on my homeowners? And there's a real easy answer. If it's not going to hit your deductible, I probably wouldn't file it. Some people call us and they say, hey, Susana, I've got a leak coming in, but it's really only like a $500 fix just on the roof. So it's like, why file that claim? Why open a claim if it's not going to hit your deductible? So there's your answer. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll be back again in 2 weeks with another guest. And if you want to connect with us in the meantime, please go to gibagencydallas.com. We look forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you again very soon. Thanks again.